My name's Carol Iman, and I'm the Programming and Marketing Librarian at the Nashua Public Library. This is the first of 3 candidate forums that are being held this fall by the League of Women Voters Nashua and the Nashua Public Library. Tonight's forum features candidates for Alderman at Large in Nashua. Next Tuesday, October 5th at 6 o'clock, we'll hold our Ward Alderman Forum. On that day, start at 6 p.m., candidates for Wards 1 through 3 will speak. Then at 7 p.m., candidates for Wards 4, 5, and 6 will speak. And at 8 p.m., candidates for 7, 8, and 9 will speak. Our forum for Board of Education candidates will take place on Thursday, October 21st at 6:30 p.m. If you go to this website, which we're going to put in the chat, it's tinyurl.com/NPL forum. That's where you can register for the events, and you can also submit questions. We're just taking questions in advance. So if you want to ask somebody something at those forums, be sure to go to tinyurl.com/NPL forum. Also, be sure to check out Vote 411. That's a website run by the League of Women Voters for information on voting laws and local elections. In the next few weeks, it will also have information about the candidates for all our city races. That's at vote411.org. Some Zoom housekeeping notices. The way the meeting is set up tonight, you will only see video of the candidates and the moderator. We recommend using Zoom's speaker view. To use that view, you can move your cursor to the upper right-hand corner if you're on a computer and not a phone, so that the view button appears, and then click on speaker view. All the audience mics have been muted to reduce background noise. And as I said earlier, we're only accepting questions that were submitted in advance. If you experience any glitches with Zoom tonight, like you hear an echo or the video freezes, try turning your camera off if you have it turned on. You can also try leaving the meeting, rebooting your computer, and then returning. Our program tonight is being recorded. It will be available on our local access TV channels, YouTube, and also from the library's online calendar. I hope to have it up there tomorrow. And now I'll turn things over to our moderator, Kate Kuhn, who chairs a unit of the League of Women Voters in the Monadnock region.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you to the League of Women Voters of Nashua and to the library. Thank you very much for inviting me to your candidate forum. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose individual candidates or political parties. We do, however, work to educate the voting public and to increase the number of people who vote. Your forum tonight is very much in the spirit of voter education, and we sincerely thank the candidates who are participating here tonight to make their views known and to answer voters' questions. We'll let the candidates each introduce themselves to you with 2-minute opening statements, and then move to the questions which have been submitted in advance by the voters. I've had a chance to read the questions. I'm not from Nashua, and it's a very kind of robust and interesting group of issues that you're confronting and thinking about and going to vote people into office to deal with. The candidates have between 1 and 2 minutes to answer each of the questions. I'm going to be the timer. And when they're at 1.5 minutes, I'm going to hold a yellow paddle up to say they only have 30 seconds to go, and then a red paddle when the time is up. And I'm going to vary the response order from question to question, so it doesn't always go in the same order. I reserve the right as the moderator to allow a candidate to respond to another person's answers if the candidate is mentioned by name. And if that happens, you should keep your rebuttal to under 1 minute. So here's how we're going to do the order of the opening statements. It's what I call a modified reverse alpha order. So the first person to give her opening statement will be Ms. Kristen Wilson. And then Mr. Donald Whalen, who's not here, he submitted a statement that will be read by Carol Iman. Then it will be Miss Gloria Timmons. Then it will be Mr. Melbourne Moran. Then another statement from somebody who's not here, Miss Paula Johnson, also read by Carol. And then Ms. Shoshana Kelly, who's here, and not here, Ms. Laura Calhoun. I hope I'm saying the name correctly. And her statement will be read by Carol. So the statements that are going to be read, I think one of them was timed at about 3 minutes, and that you can consider sort of adding the time of the opening statement and the closing statement. So I think that gets us going. And Ms. Wilson, will you please start us off?
First, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Kristen Wilson, and I do want to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting us here tonight and participating in the forum. I am a Nashua resident. I have lived in Nashua for almost 30 years, probably 27 plus years. I am married to my husband, Eric, and we've been married for 24. Eric is a Nashua native. I have 2 children, Grace and Peter. I am an attorney, a former prosecutor for the Hillsborough County Attorney's Office. I left there after several years of prosecuting felony level cases when I had my son, and my husband and I decided that I would stay home and raise our children. And so after leaving the county attorney's office, I have been at home and volunteered for several of the kids' school functions, as well as Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. I was on the Nashua Soup Kitchen Board for a while. I did some substitute teaching, as well as a law class over at the Nashua Community College. So that's just a little background on myself. And now I wanted to just give you the reasons why I decided to run for the Board of Aldermen. It really is because of my increased frustration about the course that I feel the city's on with the uncontrolled spending. And what I feel like is I have a concern about what really seems like rubber stamping with the current Board of Aldermen. I want to change that, and I think that I can bring a reasonable voice to the table and really share my views and my concerns with the path that we're currently on. I would like to say that right now I feel like the city is really divided based on political parties. This election is supposed to be nonpartisan. And right now I feel like the city is really suffering because we are so divided based on political parties. I am an independent. I am in no way aligned to either party. I have no allegiance to vote for either party. I vote for what I think is the best decision for the city and what's going to make us a successful Nashua.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Your time is up. Are you able, are people able to see my paddle or not?
Yes.
Well, now I can see it.
Okay. I guess just watch for me up in the corner when I'm going. Okay, thank you very much. Our next statement, if you will read this, Carol, will be from Mr. Donald Whalen.
Okay. Hi. My name is Don Whalen, and I'm running for Alderman at Large in Nashua. As an introduction for those of you who don't know me, I will tell you a little about myself. I was born in New York City, raised in Connecticut, and I moved to Nashua in 2003, where I currently live with my wife, our 2 children, and our 2 dogs. I have a BBA in Management Information Systems from Western Connecticut State University. After receiving my undergraduate degree, I taught night courses in computers, networking, operating systems, and technology at the college level before I returned to school to pursue my MBA at the University of Connecticut, all while working full-time for IBM. I have an extensive background and work experience in the field of manufacturing, as well as my many years of experience in the information technology field, solving problems through the use of software solutions. I currently work for a software company helping our customers enable their salespeople to be more successful sellers using our innovative sales enablement software portfolio. My work has taken me to many places across North and South America, as well as Europe. And when I return from business trips, I'm still very proud to call Nashua home. In addition to my work experience, I have a long history of volunteering, including coaching kids' sports teams, food drives, winter clothing drives, working with AmeriCares and Habitat for Humanity, as well as the Knights of Columbus, Cub Scouts, and I'm currently volunteering as a team photographer for my son's football team and my daughter's volleyball team. In addition to those volunteer activities, I spent 2 separate weeks down on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi following Hurricane Katrina, where we were helping families rebuild and get back into their homes after the devastating hurricane. I love Nashua, and I feel it's a great place to live and a family-friendly place for my kids to grow up. I believe my business background, education, and volunteering experience makes me a well-rounded and well-qualified candidate for Alderman at large. If elected, I will represent the good people of Nashua at City Hall, and I will work hard to attack the issues and not the individuals.
Thank you for that. That was Mr. Donald Whalen's statement. Next, Gloria Timmons, would you give us your opening statement, please?
Well, thank you, League of Women Voters and the Nashua Public Library. My name is Gloria Timmons. I'm running to serve on the Board of Aldermen as an Alderman at large. I bring my passion for service and skills acquired through military and civilian service. I am a retired disabled veteran who served over 20 years in the United States Army. My first assignment was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I was featured in the campaign Be All You Can Be. I was one of the first women in the combat support unit where I served as a Hawk missile crew member. My assignment had me stationed throughout the country and overseas, including Würzburg, Germany. It was an honor to serve and directly work with general officers, including Lieutenant General Calvin Waller, who was the United States Central Command during the Persian Gulf War. During my tenure, I earned many awards, medals, and accolades, among such as Army Accommodation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, Army Good Conduct Medal, and ribbons. My final duty station was at Fort Devens, Massachusetts, where I trained Kuwaitis return home from Desert Storm and Desert Shield to fight for their country. After retirement from the military, I took a position with the state of New Hampshire as an employment counselor, and eventually was promoted to assistant director of the Employment Security Office, which is the unemployment piece of the department. My responsibility include managing over 500 employees. I serve as a union steward for SEIU and was instrumental in working on the budget for the department. I work closely with the management team to ensure that the department and the state resources was not duplicated nor wasted. I have lived in Nashua for over 30 years and always played an active role in the community. I have served in many years as president of NAACP, commander of Disabled American Veteran, etc. As a member of the executive committee of the Arlington Street Community Center, we help feed thousands of families throughout the food drives in its original Nashua Community Conversation on Race and Justice. I was instrumental in facilitating open dialogues between the Nashua Police Department and other community organizations.
Finish your sentence.
I serve on the Board of Education, where as part of the negotiation team was crafted as fiscally responsible for the school budget. I support our working men and women and voted against the privatization of custodians. I also work on negotiation for the teachers in direct contact. Nashua need a Board of Aldermen that will continue to move the city forward. I will draw on that experience and my many skills I have required to ensure that the Nashua continue to be the best city to live in USA.
Thank you very much for your statement, Gloria. Next is Mr. Melbourne Moran. Melbourne.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you.
My name is Melbourne Moran Jr. First off, thank you to the League of Women's Voters for having this forum, and to Ms. Timmons for your service to our country. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
As I said, my name is Melbourne, and I live here in Nashua with my wife, Lisa, a Nashua native, and 3 children. I have 3 beautiful daughters, very intelligent girls. And I'm currently a state representative representing Nashua Ward 7, Hillsborough District 34. I own my own counseling and addiction agency here in Nashua. We have offices in Nashua and Massachusetts, and we're expanding into other states. I have a master's degree in social work from Boston University School of Social Work, and I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Massachusetts. I've been part of the Nashua community living here for over a decade, and I had my first job here at 16 at the mall. I grew up right over the border in Lowell, Massachusetts. But I'm running for the Board of Alderman to continue to contribute to policy and community involvement that will continue to make our community thrive. I want to focus on infrastructure and human infrastructure, which I consider greatly important to our community. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I was a frontline healthcare worker, providing immediate and direct care in person and via telehealth to the members of our community who were isolated and struggling with isolation from the shutdown that occurred. And part of my motivation to run is to help make our community whole. And I hope to bring those skills to the board and exercise the judgment that I have learned in both private and public sector that will help us all thrive, and to continue to make Nashua a city that my neighbors and my children are going to be proud to live in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you came in under 2 minutes. Yeah, I know you were racing at the end. Thank you. Okay, our next statement is Ms. Paula Johnson's statement. And once again, Carol will read that statement.
Okay.
Thank you.
I thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. I'm pleased to see that our residents remain vigilant and involved with the issues facing all of us. I continue to be invigorated by the continuing involvement of women. It's important for all of us to elect representatives who can be effective and knowledgeable from day one. For that reason, I'm here tonight to ask for your support in my quest for a seat on the Board of Aldermen. Most of my career has been spent working in the best interests of the City of Nashua and all of our residents. I have served on the Board of Education twice. My first term began in 2000, and I serve on that board now. Every vote I take, every position I adopt is for one reason only: what is best for our children. The grandstanding of some members is not my concern. The children is my concern, my only concern. In 2002, I held a position on the Board of Aldermen. I pride myself on being a significant voice for common sense, accountability, and fiscal sanity. In 2005, I was honored to be elected to the New Hampshire House of Representatives. My aim in that position was to serve 2 masters. First, to act in the best interest of the state of New Hampshire, and second, to represent the interests of Nashua. As an alderman, I pledge to represent those interests to the very best of my ability. We have a large number of seniors living in Nashua. It's our job to make sure those people and everyone else can afford to continue to live in one of the best cities to live in anywhere in this country. That's not only my opinion, that was a selection on more than one occasion in national magazines. And they were right. It's up to us to maintain that standing by offering our seniors the services and tax relief they deserve. My representation will be a firm step in that direction. For those of us who watch the interactions of some of our elected officials, they never heard of respect. All of our elected and appointed officials, as well as every resident, deserve our respect. To me, that means listening. I pledge to listen to our citizens, listen to our elected officials, listen to everyone, even those with whom I may disagree. It would be nice to build a new school. It would be nice to fix all of our infrastructure issues. It would be nice to do these things and more without the need for any bond issues or borrowing. It would even be nice to, all at one time, fill every pothole in the city and repave every road or lane that needs it. Is there anyone here with extra money who wants to donate it to pay for all this? I didn't think so. There's a fine distinction between needs and wants. As your alderman, I want all of these things, but as your alderman, I will weigh the difference between want and need. There are many things we need, but it is our job as elected officials to exercise fiscal restraint and fiscal responsibility to select those needs which can be postponed and those which cannot. And we must do that while keeping as much money in your pocket as possible. Those who advocate increasing taxes and fees, even on businesses only, fail to understand exactly who pays those increases. Every company and owner I know takes those increases and adds them to the price we pay. An increase hurts every one of us. My job will continue to be a strong voice for minimizing any increase in what each of us is required to pay. Whether you own your own house or rent, those costs filter down to your pocket. The city budget goes up every year. If you own your home or if you rent, the burden will be on you. Many commercial properties have lost value during the pandemic. Many businesses have closed, or if they were lucky, only lost money during that time. They are still required to pay their taxes. We owe them some relief. Especially during these turbulent times, we must reduce spending on items which are not truly essential. When major items are bonded, that serves as a postponement, not a solution. As surely as the sun comes up on most mornings, our tax rate will continue to reflect the bonded amounts that must be paid. As part of fiscal responsibility, I pledge to ask every employee to justify every expenditure. As your representative, I pledge to listen to every one of you who has a concern. I will listen to every parent. I will listen to every employee. As Judge Judy often says, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. As your representative, I pledge to work for transparency in all issues. As your representative, I pledge to work for common sense in spending, common sense in accountability. As your representative, I pledge to work tirelessly with the other members of the board. I'm asking everyone in this room to vote on November 2nd. I'm requesting your support, your vote in this important election. Your vote and support for Paula Johnson as Alderman at Large is a vote for fiscal responsibility and sanity, a vote for integrity, a vote for open communications, and a vote for respect for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson via Carol Iman. Thank you very much. And now, please, Ms. Shoshana Kelly, would you give us your opening statement?
Thank you so much. And thank you again to the library for holding the forum. My name is Shoshana Kelly. I am an alderwoman at large here in Nashua and a business owner. I'm also the only current alderwoman on the panel this evening. And as such, I just want to thank the citizens for entrusting me to represent them for the last 4 years. I'm in front of you today to ask for your support in re-election and talk a little bit about the things that I've been able to do and would like to continue to do for the city here. I have 2 small children in the city, one more than I had when I ran 4 years ago. I have a daughter in the school system, and I work right downtown. So some of the things that I've been really proud to work on over the last 4 years, in no particular order, I've been really proud to support our public education system. I think everybody would agree that our school system is a critical part of our city, and it's a critical part of attracting young families to our city. So I've advocated for making sure they have the funding and the resources that they need to continue to support our children. Community safety and infrastructure has also been really forefront for me. I've advocated for paying our firefighters fairly. I've supported our current paving program, which was aggressive and has definitely helped with the roads around the city. We've worked on sewer infrastructure, not glamorous, but important. And I would like to continue to work on making Nashua a more walkable city. From an economic standpoint, commuter rail, Riverfront Development Project. I see you, Kate. So many other things that I've been able to work on. But I've really appreciated my time, and I would hope that you would return me to the Board of Alderman to continue.
Thank you so much, Shoshana. Stop. Okay, and then our final statement tonight is from Laura Cahoon, and that will once again be read by Carol Iman. And then after that, we're going to head over to the questions that have been submitted in advance. I see 138 participants. I guess that includes the 9 panelists, and that's wonderful. So Carol, take it away for the final opening statement.
All right. Let me introduce myself. I am Laura Cahoon, and I'm running for Alderman at Large. At this point, I think it's important that Nashua residents take back their city. Residents need to make the city more accountable in spending and more transparent in dealing with Nashua residents. With current city officials, Nashua residents have lost their voices, and I think it is important that they get it back. It seems that our current city officials only want to do what our mayor wants, and our mayor is showing that he is only interested in downtown and not the entire city of Nashua. I moved to Nashua in late 2013, and with the dramatic change in my assessment, I started looking into what this city was doing with assessments. In just looking over some other assessments, I found 2 properties that the City of Nashua forgot to tax. In reviewing the financial records, a resident can see that the City of Nashua has a lot of wasteful spending, and this affects our tax rate. If elected to the Board of Aldermen, I will be thorough and diligent about spending your money and will respect the wishes of the citizens with regard to spending. We all work hard for our money, and we must exercise common sense when spending. A drop in commercial properties valuations, coupled with the mayor's new tax incentive finance programs, is reducing money in the general fund. The financial burden will be shouldered by the residential property owners. It's also very important to vote no on the charter change to appoint police commissioners. It was a poorly thought through and executed plan that creates a needless risk for our police department. Until a well-vetted review of the process for appointing commissioners is completed, no changes should be approved to the Nashua Charter. Please vote no on this ballot question. I'm asking for your vote on November 2nd, 2021.
Thank you very much for that, for the opening statements. This is great. Okay, we are going to move to the questions now. And I think I won't announce in advance of the question the order of who's going to answer. I'll as each person finishes, I'll call on the next person. And I'm going to be strict now that we've had the opening statements to keep our answers, to keep your answers under 2 minutes. So I'm going to so just watch for the yellow paddle, if you don't mind, and then we can move along. And I'm going to just say that the first question is going to have a related question, so that'll give you more than the first 2 minutes to kind of talk about it. And it's actually just been teed up by the final opening statement that you just heard. I will say that the first question and the second question, I'll have you do the same order. So we will start with one of the most popular questions that we got from voters. The question is this: what is your position on the police commission charter change? Unquote. In case any audience members haven't heard about this yet, it is a ballot question that would make appointment of police commissioners the responsibility of the mayor and board of aldermen rather than the governor. And there is some late breaking news about a suit about that happened today, whether this will actually be on the ballot or not. I'm not sure how late in the day it came, but I know that there's something about that. But in any case, we're going to have you each address the basic question: what is your position on the police commission charter change? And could I please start with Gloria Timmons?
Yes, thank you for that great question. I thought that would come up, so I'm kind of prepared to answer it. My position is, first I'd like to say that I work with the Nashua Police Department on many events and organizations, including Nashua Community Conversation on Race and Justice. I don't think this is about the Nashua Police Department. This is about There is only one man on the Nashua Police Commission because they said there was no qualified women, but that's not true. Linda Pinterest, a criminal justice professor and a PhD in criminal justice, applied for a police commission appointment in 2016. Her nomination was submitted by a former Nashua police officer. Her nominator told her they rarely appoint women. She was denied even an interview. We have to change. We have to move forward. My position is that I think that Nashua citizens have a right to choose their own commission. We are intelligent. The rest of the state, they chooses their own commission. We're the only one that's not. And they're not corrupt. They're not anything. To say that we can't choose our own commission is absurd, and we need to do it. And if I feel that if you have something to hide, this is a good way to hide it. This is Nashua accountability among Nashua residents, and they should have to vote to say whether they want to have the Nashua chooses their own commissioner, not someone else. And also believe that putting it on the ballot is the best way to do it. And let Nashua decide what they want to do, not the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gloria. And next up, please, Ms. Wilson.
Can you hear me? I am exact opposite of what Ms. Timmons just said. I believe that the Nashua Police Department should be independent from City Hall, and I am absolutely voting no on the ballot. The first question I have is, why are we rushing this to the ballot in the first place before we have educated voters who know what they're voting on? In order to protect the city from corruption, there needs to be a wall that safeguards between the mayor and the Board of Aldermen and the people that we were potentially asking to investigate City Hall. It's a clear conflict of interest to have the same people appointing the commissioners who you would then be asking if there is a potential investigation within City Hall. We currently have local control. The 3 commissioners, 2 are Nashua natives. The third has lived in Nashua for over 3 decades. They are all upstanding citizens. They have all dedicated themselves to the city, and they have all been nominated by the governor. They were interviewed.
30 seconds.
Because of the interest of time, I'm just going to end by saying we have experienced corruption in Nashua, and the system we have now worked. 3 aldermen went to federal prison. And if that system weren't there, that corruption would not have been investigated, and it would have been swept under the rug.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Next, Ms. Shoshana Kelly, would you please give us your answer to that question?
Thank you. So I approach everything in the horseshoe with an open mind, and I was a supporter of this piece of legislation when it first came in. But as we talked through it on the Board of Aldermen, there were a ton of people, my colleagues, other community members who had questions, and they had different ideas about, does this make sense? Why not 7 people? Why only 5? What if it, there's places that do an advisory board, there are places that do a citizens board, and there was a lot of really good discussion at the committee level. And so I pushed and advocated for putting together a work study group. It just felt like the community needed to be involved in this conversation in a bigger way than having it come to committee, having it go to the Board of Aldermen, and then just putting it on the ballot. And so as the chair of the work study committee, I am working really hard to make sure that all voices come to the table on this and that we can really have that community discussion. Maybe local control does make sense. I obviously thought at some level it did, and that's why I signed my name up But maybe there's a better solution, and I don't think there's any reason to rush it.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Mr. Melbourne Moran.
Thank
Your
you.
turn.
So I believe in democracy. I believe that the residents of the city, voters, got together and they exercised their First Amendment rights to collect signatures and put this referendum on a ballot. I believe that we have the right to have the Nashua voters decide. I believe that they're more than competent to make these decisions. Up at the State House, you'll find that I was one of very few, if not the only Democrat, who voted to put a referendum on a state ballot for no sales tax and no income tax, two different constitutional amendments. I believe that in referendums, I believe that the best poll is that of the voter. You can have committees, you can have this and that, but what we want to do as elected officials is do what the people want. And a poll that will decide that will be, hopefully if it stays on the ballot, will be this upcoming election. And I will support whatever the people of Nashua decide, yes or no, because that's what you do as elected official.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so as I said, there's another question that follows on that, and we'll do it in the same order. So it says, and to go a little bit more general, several voters also wanted to know about your philosophy on the role of the police in our community and whether police funding should be increased, decreased, or stay the same. So again, the same order as last time for two related but different questions on policing in Nashua. So Gloria Timmons, please, will you start?
Thank you. Again, that's a great question. I have no problem with the Nashua Police Department. Working with the Nashua Police Department and working with the individuals there, we do need police presence. I just want to make that clear. So I don't advocate that we should get rid of the police at all. However, my opinion on whether we should raise police salaries or police department, I don't know at this point. It seemed to be working right now. I look at what the schools need, and I think they need more money at this particular time. So right now, it's up in the air whether we get the money to the police department or whether we give the money to the schools. At this point, I think we should give the money to the schools. We have funded the police department year after year after year. They do need staff. I do know that. We do need a good police community, and we do have that. But we still need to keep spending as such until we're able to spend more money in the school district. That's my opinion on that.
Thank you very much for your answer. And next, please, Kristen Wilson.
I would just like to say that Nashua has the best police department in the state. They're nationally ranked for their professionalism and their standards. And the other communities in New Hampshire look to Nashua to model their police departments, not the other way around. We need to make sure that they have the appropriate funding to make that and continue to make that happen and keep our city safe. No one wants to live in an unsafe city. You're not going to draw new families or businesses to a city that is having issues with crime. So I strongly believe that we need to give them the resources that they need to continue to be the best police department in the state. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And next, please, is Shoshana Kelly.
Thank you. As a member of the Budget Committee, I have seen this come through a number of years, year after year. And I think one of the things that we really try to do is make sure that that the police, the fire, they all get the funding that they need so that they don't have to cut services. We have a large city. Oftentimes we're still not meeting the need that we have, but they're making do. And so, I've always supported the police department budget as it's come in. I do think from a perspective of how can we talk about policing and are there ways where, and I know they do this now, but I think we can continue to look at this, where a mental health counselor or a social worker is the right person to go and not a police officer. But in terms of funding, I think that, I've been a strong advocate for keeping our services, but balancing it and making sure that the taxpayers feel like they're getting what they're paying for, and it's not a huge increase each year. Kate, if I could, I did want to respond to the previous question. I just don't think you saw my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not. Go ahead.
That's okay. I just wanted to mention about the citizens ballot measure. I also agree that the citizens have every right to do the ballot measure, and that's just outside of our purview as the Board of Aldermen. So all we could do was talk about the piece in front of us, and we felt really strongly that we wanted more time. There was no ever an indication that we wanted the citizens to stop that ballot measure. That's their right, and I agree with Mel on that. That's really important. That's part of democracy. So thank you.
I appreciate your jumping in on that. That's wonderful. Okay, and then next is Mel. I've been calling you Melbourne, but you've just been called Mel, so you can tell me.
Either one's fine.
All right, thanks.
Just don't call me late.
No, okay.
So I wholeheartely believe that critical services in the city need to be well funded and supported, and that includes the police department. There's no terminology. We cannot never use the word defund police in any type of context, because they offer and provide a critical service that keeps our community safe. Are changes needed? And yes, absolutely. As Alderwoman Kelly was saying, mental health clinicians, social workers. I have worked with Chief Kerrigan and Chief Lavoie prior to him with the mobile crisis team here in Nashua. We did ride-alongs. I went out and spoke to every shift from a morning shift to overnight shifts about the need of that service and responding to mental health calls and homelessness and social service calls. That is a service that's being mostly driven by the police department, and it doesn't need to be. They have more important things to do than to try to find housing for someone that's unsheltered in the community. Social workers and mental health clinicians exist to help those people in need. We should be focused on having the police respond to community safety issues. That's what they're trained for, and that's what they do very well in the city. They obviously have mental health first aid training that's been well received in the city, but we need to make sure we're supporting them in their core function, which is keeping the community safe and also providing supportive services to that department. I would love to see social workers reporting directly to the chief, or obviously his designee, and have them respond directly from the police department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, for your answers to that set of questions. Okay, shifting gears to another important topic, and one of you mentioned attracting families, or maybe a couple of you mentioned attracting families and people to your city. So this question, verbatim: what is the role of city government in creating affordable housing for low-income individuals and families? And the order, we'll start with Ms. Alderman Shoshana Kelly.
Thank you so much. I think that the role of the city and the Board of Aldermen is critical here. We are currently, and this is one of the things that I've been very passionate about, I'm on the board of the soup kitchen in the city, and I've been very passionate about this. We have no housing stock, absolutely almost none in this city. And as we bring on new stock, we have to balance people who might be moving here from Boston, might want a different lifestyle. That's great. But also making sure that people can actually afford to live here. It's really, really important. So we've been talking a lot about it. We did a presentation last night around inclusionary zoning, how we might move forward with that in the city. And that's us setting that that value set. What do we want to see as a city? So we'll be looking at that and talking to community members and really trying to implement something that everybody can be happy with. The Housing Trust Fund was just put together as a piece of legislation I put in at the beginning of the year. That is, depending on how we do the inclusionary zoning, et cetera, there'll be money that goes directly into that fund, and then we can use that money to then support. It would never be a whole project, but someone could say, oh, I'm going to do a project. It's going to have some affordable housing, and they can apply for some support from the Affordable Housing Fund. So it's critical, and we are key to how this conversation moves forward in the city. And I think it should be part of our value set as a welcoming city.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And next, please, Mel Moran, would you take that question?
Yes, affordable housing is very important to me here in the city. I have many clients that I've worked with who will quote me that they're paying 17, 18, 19 plus a month in rent. And that's more than my mortgage for a 3-bedroom house. And these are 1-bedroom apartments. And ways that we can, first off, there's a, knock on wood, a bipartisan infrastructure bill that's going to send money directly to the city if it does pass. If we could use those funds to help support existing housing, like micro grants to landlords to help beautify some of their properties to make the current housing livable for those that aren't aware of certain parts of the city, some of the housing is not adequate. Second, if we have the resources available from that bipartisan infrastructure bill to expand public housing. We have a lot of low-income families who can't even get an apartment with a Section 8 voucher. And you can, there's been several articles recently about you taking the Section 8 voucher, going to the landlord, no, thank you, because I can get more from a market rate payer. We have to incentivize landlords to take these vouchers or help them through, if they're doing developments, maybe work with community development downtown for tax credits on new developments and have them set aside 30% of their units to be sliding fee affordable housing units.
Thank you. Next up, please, Ms. Gloria Timmons.
Hey, thank you. That was a wonderful question. That question come up a lot with the seniors. I'm also a senior, so I'm around a lot of senior citizens that's complaining as well about affordable housing. We need to do a lot on affordable housing, not just for the seniors, but also for the veterans that's also complaining about no housing or that they can't afford housing. And that's why I'm always having someone living with me because they can't afford to live elsewhere. So right now, I'm not on the board of aldermen. I don't know what I would do, but hopefully I'll be in that committee to help deal with affordable housing. So until I can research more on what we can do for the underserved, then I would do everything humanly possible to make sure that happens, including finding landlords that would take Section 8. And also some of the housing is just so ridiculous. I'm shocked myself. We really have to help our senior citizens. We have to help our veterans. We have to help our underserved. And that's one of the things I want to be on that committee to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then finally, please, Ms. Kristen Wilson.
Thank you. I agree with some of the statements that have already been made that obviously affordable housing is an issue in Nashua and has been for some years since my time on the Nashua Soup Kitchen. One of the agencies that I know that has been addressing the problem and is moving forward is the Nashua Housing Authority, which my husband has served on the board there for over 20 years now. And they are proudly bringing us a new complex of 216 units when they currently, I think there's like 48 units. So that project is coming to fruition now, and that is going to be a great asset to the city. But in addition to working with the affordable housing agencies, the like the Housing Authority and Harbor Homes, et cetera, we also need to step up with the private developers in offering incentives to get some more housing in here that will suit citizens who need the low income housing and their needs are currently not being met. So taking projects that we can work with developers and make it something that serves the city and the low income housing that we need desperately. Thanks.
Thank you so very much. All right. The next, hold on, let me just start again. The next question, under what conditions, if any, would you support mask mandates? And the order begins with Mel Moran.
What a very important question. Mask mandates, I think what we have to do is listen to the science. We have to appreciate people's individual choices to choose and their individual freedom. But when it comes to public health, we have to listen to the science. We have to listen to the Board of Public Health, doctors that are on that board who are able to understand the data of COVID a lot better than a lay person can, and in the interest of protecting the public. If there were a recommendation by the Board of Public Health to put together a mask mandate again, which I believe is highly unlikely. I think we're actually, from the data I am reviewing, it looks like we're starting to enter an endemic where there'll be sporadic breaks of the COVID virus throughout the country. But still, it's still dangerous to those who are not vaccinated and who are immunocompromised. But if I was elected, I will listen to the recommendation of the Board of Public Health if a mask mandate is needed to protect the citizens of the city.
Thank you, Mel. Next, please, Shoshana Kelly.
Thank you. If you've been paying attention, you would know where I stand on this pretty quickly. We voted for a mask mandate back when the pandemic started on the recommendation of the Board of Health. Nashua is an interesting city, and we're a border city to Massachusetts, and the cases there were really rising. And so we took that into account, as well as the recommendations from the Board of Health. And I everything that Mel said and more. The science says it works. I was not voting on it, but I was very glad to see that the children are wearing them in schools. I know that's helped keep our cases down. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and next, please, Ms. Wilson.
Yeah, as far as the mask mandates are concerned, I just really think that we have to pay attention to, obviously, the statistics and listen to what the scientists are telling us. But I really do think we have to make sure that our kids continue to go to school. If that means putting a mask on, then so be it. I just think that we need to keep the kids in school, and whatever that takes at this point, that's what we should try to accomplish.
Thank you. And Ms. Timmons.
Oh, gee, I agree with all the panelists this time. We voted to have masks in school. I was one of the people that made a motion that the Board of Education and anybody that entered the boardroom also wear masks. I think masks is important. I do listen to the science, and whatever can keep our kids in school, we should do that. So.
Okay.
My answer.
Thank you. Okay. Voter rights, in quotes. I fully support expansion of outdoor dining downtown. However, the streets remain noisy and congested and inaccessible to many people with mobility issues. Would you support electric shuttle service from parking garages to the downtown area to help alleviate these problems and increase opportunities for businesses and their patrons, unquote. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that idea, and more broadly, any other ideas you have for solving parking, congestion, and accessibility issues downtown. That's a tall order, lots of things under there, but I suspect those of you who live in Nashua know exactly how you want to break this question down. So the order here begins with Ms. Kristen Wilson.
So I have actually gone downtown because of this issue, because I myself found downtown very chaotic right now, as well as many of the people that I spoke with. So I had an opportunity, and I went downtown, and I had a chance to speak to a lot of the retailers, and got their feedback on the issue. There was a time that we needed the barriers downtown, and that was in the beginning of COVID when everybody was struggling. And the barriers served their purpose, and businesses were able to open, retailers as well as restaurants. And that time has now passed. And that is how most of the people that I spoke to feel about it. The thing I'd like to say that I was most impressed by is that the restaurants and the retailers definitely felt like they could work together to compromise, and that there were solutions. And one of those was to move the barriers on Thursday nights when the restaurants were open Thursday through Saturday, and the restaurants could then move their tables onto the sidewalks, and they could use the retailer space in front of their sidewalks instead of taking up the street. It's a safety issue. The bike lane, and well, I'm getting a warning, so my time is up. But
Not quite. Keep going.
I think there is a compromise available, and the retailers and the restaurants downtown all want to contribute to that. And there is definitely a solution that would best serve the city, and it's not with the barriers in the middle of the road.
Thank you. Next, to tackle that question, Ms. Timmons, please.
Oh, I'm downtown all the time. Great question. I eat downtown. I love downtown. I absolutely like the barriers as well. But I am down there on the weekends, and I travel there all the time because I do a lot of community work, and I have to travel through downtown. It is congested, and I think we need the barriers for safety reasons. I see a lot of crazy things happening when I'm driving down there, and the barriers help with the safety. I like the shuttle piece. If we can have people come to a certain location and we pick them up and take them to their location downtown, that's a great idea. I didn't think of that, but I like that idea, and I don't know if we can afford to do that. I do know that the city sometimes provide free bus services from the Nashua Transit. Maybe they can use that to help people that want to shop downtown. But I think the barriers are needed. And I love downtown. I love eating downtown. I like being downtown. And I think we should have something to encourage more downtown activities.
Thank you for your answer. Next, please, Ms. Alderman Kelly, would you tackle that question?
Of course, I actually want to thank whoever submitted this, because I think as a sitting alderman, you do things to meet where the community needs. And that was the idea here with the barriers, and just really to help the restaurants and the businesses who were struggling. And we had the unintended consequence of making it hard for people with disability issues. So thank you for that. I would obviously be open to finding ways to make that more accessible if we continue the program. I'm a downtown business owner. I see both sides of this. I see how it's helped a lot of businesses, and my building is right across from the Nashua Library. So I see how congested it is at 5 o'clock when I go to leave and get home. So I do see both sides of this issue, and I think it's a community conversation as to how we continue to support our businesses, but make sure that people can still get where they need to go.
Thank you. And Mr. Moran, please.
First off, the outdoor dining was a perfect example of a public-private partnership that allowed the restaurants that endured the biggest hit financially during COVID, the COVID shutdown, allowed them to help bring back business and be more financially stable. But that said, the barriers are a bit of a nuisance. At least that's what voters that I'm talking to when I go out on canvassing. I can tell you personally that to get my kids to school, I have to go all the way around the city or go take the highway to get them there, because the traffic in the morning on Main Street, when it's just one lane going each direction, is very difficult. I do think there's workarounds to allow partial outdoor dining to continue, but the way it is now, it's not sustainable. Obviously, we'll be taking it down during the winter, but the way it's set up now is not sustainable to the traffic flow of the downtown area. We want people to come to downtown, not avoid it. So I do appreciate the shuttle service idea. It's a wonderful idea, but I would have to look more how we fund something like that. We need to be fiscally responsible as well before we jump into a service that might require additional time and services from the city.
Okay. Thank you very much for that series of answers. The next question piggybacks a little bit on the one about affordable housing, but takes it in a slightly different direction. It does have to do with housing, but as I say, slightly different element to it. So the question is, again, directly sent in by one of your constituents, and this is what they asked. What ideas do you have regarding solving the housing shortage in Nashua? That part you tackled a little bit earlier, but the second part, could the Board of Aldermen work with businesses to repurpose no longer needed office or warehouse space, is the question. And the first to answer, please, would be Ms. Gloria Timmons.
I like the idea of repurposing. I think that's great. If we have the facilities to repurpose, there's a couple of places downtown and around the city that's not being used now. If we can repurpose those for low or affordable housing, I'm all for it. I don't know enough about how we go about doing that, and but that's a great idea.
Great, thank you. Next, please, Mr. Moran.
Yes, so this is another example where public-private partnerships will work to bring more value to the community and the city. Here, I would envision the city government being a middleman to link the current owners of these businesses that have not using their office space to developers who are able to turn them into residential properties. But I do think there's a huge role for the city to play in bringing these types of partnerships together to address affordable housing shortages in the city. It's a wonderful idea.
And would the Board of Aldermen have that capacity? If anybody wants to add into that answer. As Alderman, can you do that?
I guess the only one can answer that is Shoshana.
Okay, and she's next. So
could you clarify what you're asking? What could we do? I'm sorry.
Because it says could the question the voter asked was, could the Board of Aldermen work with businesses to repurpose no longer needed office or warehouse space? So it was a little bit more pointed than the town or the city.
Yeah, and when my wheels are turning as we're talking. So I think we need all hands on deck on this. And I think creative ideas, that's what I do for a living. I love when people come with ideas. Things that come to my mind with that is, first of all, I'm not a developer, but I know that if a commercial property is zoned as commercial, it's going to be hard to shift it into a residential. And we'd really have to think about the zoning issues there. Also, I think, from a sustainability standpoint, it's great to think about reusing, but sometimes reusing a building actually becomes more costly than building a new one, which we saw with the middle school and, moving from Elm Street into the new middle school is actually cheaper. But the idea of working, leading conversations, all of that is a great way to do it. We can't force businesses into doing anything, but we can talk to them. And I do agree that public-private partnerships are a really good way to start this conversation in our community.
Thank you very much. And then next, thank you, Kristen Wilson, Ms. Kristen Wilson.
Yes, I love renovating. I've done 5 homes with my husband, so I'm all for repurposing any buildings that we can. And in fact, the city has had partnerships with private developers, and we need to continue to do so. And usually it's a low income tax credit that they offer to private developers. And I know that we've, like the old Nashua Court building, the Henry Hanger space, those are both examples of where the city has accomplished that. And the Board of Aldermen absolutely can deal with private developers in developing the housing, and they should continue to do so. Another, I think, Southern New Hampshire Services also has a lot to offer, and the Board of Aldermen should continue to partner with those agencies.
Thank you. Thank you all for your answers to that question. Okay, we're going to swing again back to a question about face covering. And again, I will read it to you exactly as it was sent to us. And so direct quotation from the person who sent it in. Presently, City Hall has a face covering requirement. Do you intend to comply with this requirement if it is still in effect when you take office? Unquote. That's the direct question. And just to clarify, this question is about whether you personally would comply with an existing rule, not whether you would vote for a requirement, since we already talked about that. And I'm not sure whose language that last part is, but so that is the question that has been posed. And the order begins with Ms. Shoshana Kelly.
Thank you. The answer is absolutely. As leaders in this community, we need to follow the rules and regulations that are put forward. I get up and I go to the Board of Aldermen meeting. I put on my mask. I wear pants because Board of Health says I got to wear pants when I leave my house. I wear shoes. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't comply with a order from the city or City Hall or the mayor.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Mel Moran.
So first off, coronavirus in general is very personal to me. My father died of coronavirus back in June. I completely will wear a mask for any city hall business that requires it, because I do not want someone else to lose a loved one to this deadly virus. And I want to do my part to reduce the spread.
Thank you. And next, please, Ms. Kristen Wilson.
Yes, I would wear a mask.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Timmons.
I'm not a rule breaker. I just don't break rules. So yes, I will wear a mask. And I'm really sorry about your father, Melbourne. I also have quite a few family members that also died from COVID, so I take it very seriously.
Thank you all. The next question. What would you support the City of Nashua using the American Rescue Plan Act funds for, based on the federally permitted regulations? And what would you not support? Do you want me to read that again? So the American Rescue Plan Act funds, what would you support the City of Nashua using them for, based on federally permitted regulations? And what would you not support them being used for? Okay, and the order is Mel Moran first.
So the ARPA funds have very stringent restrictions on what they can and cannot be used for. One thing everyone should know is I'm up on the executive committee for the Hillsborough County, and learning from that perspective of my role as a state representative, you cannot use that money to reduce the tax liability. What we can do is use those funds to help expand resources related to COVID-19, such as giving schools, Nashua schools, masks, ventilation systems, things that are critically needed to support and reduce the costs already accumulated from the COVID-19 pandemic on public services in the city.
And is there anything you wouldn't support? I think was the second part of that question.
I am in full support of using that money any way we can to make improvements to the city.
Okay, thank you. Next would be Gloria, Ms. Timmons.
Yes, thank you for that. That was also another great question. I would use it for what it's intended to be used for. And if we can, any extra money that we can use it for the city, I have no problem using it for that purpose. But it must be first used for what it was intended to be used for.
Okay. And next would be Ms. Shoshana Kelly.
Thank you, and thanks for the question. We actually had a really good conversation with this at the board level last week, and we had some discussions from, Director Cummings, Director Martian, and their potential ways that we could use this money. And the one that struck me the most, and I think we've talked a lot about it tonight, is affordable housing. That is a place that we could put this money and really make a big impact. And one of the things that they talked about that hit me was, let's make a big impact with this money instead of trying to parse, a couple thousand here, a couple thousand here, a couple thousand here. So I felt really strongly about the affordable housing option that they put in front of us. One of the other options they had was redoing Main Street. I'm not really in favor of that right now. We just did it. And I feel like I would like to see us do something really bold in affordable housing before we invest more money in the Main Street.
Okay. And then the question comes to you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. So as it's unclear of what we can really use it for other than nonprofits, I would definitely support using it for the affordable housing or any other nonprofit organization, like the senior center, but anything that's legally permissible, obviously.
Okay, great. Okay, next question. We're ripping through these, folks. You're giving substantive answers, and I think you're giving your voters lots to see and think about. So I appreciate what you're doing, and at the same time being concise and respectful of the time limits. But I think I don't think you're cutting yourselves off, which I think is great. Next question. Are you for the vaccine mandate that the Biden administration has proposed, or are you against it? And then a second part to that question is, please explain your stance. And so the order here begins with Ms. Kelly.
Thank you. Look, I think a lot of the things surrounding COVID-19, we've had a rough couple of years, but I think the things around them have become politicized, and it's not necessary. Our kids get vaccinated for lots of things, and that's what's gotten us out of pandemics in the past. So I believe if our president believes that we need a vaccine mandate, and the CDC believes it, and the doctors and scientists who have studied this their whole life think that we need a vaccine mandate in order to get this deadly virus and eradicate it, I am 100% behind that.
Okay, thank you. Next, Ms. Timmons, please.
I agree with Ms. Kelly. When I was young, this is in the early 50s, I know it's a long time ago, we was lined up in school and we got all the vaccinations, whether you wanted it or not. And a lot of those vaccinations are now eradicated. All the diseases, the childhood diseases are now eradicated. It wasn't a big issue of getting a polio shot. We did what we need to do to protect others. And I think that's what we need to do now. We need to be vaccinated to protect the masses.
Okay, thank you. Next, Ms. Wilson, please.
Yes. Well, first, I'd like to point out that this really isn't a local Board of Alderman issue, and we would never be confronted with this at the local level. But obviously, vaccines are important to keep the community safe. And having said that, I do think that I respect people's individual choices at the same time. I understand why some people are hesitant to get the vaccine, and I think they have that individual choice. I personally have the vaccine, my family has the vaccine, but I certainly do understand and appreciate why others do not want the vaccine.
Okay. So that would sound to me as though you would oppose a vaccine mandate or not?
No,
No, okay.
that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. All right. And then last would be Mr. Moran.
So let's be clear. I don't think it's a vaccine mandate. You know, a mandate requires you have no other option. The president is setting OSHA is directing OSHA to make standards for businesses. And on one end, if you do business with the federal government, you have to either be vaccinated or have I think a weekly test. And there's also religious exemptions as well, or health exemptions. That does not necessarily make a mandate. This is very hyper political at the moment. You know, the term mandate really drives a lot of people, gets right under their skin, because people do have individual choice to make decisions for themselves. But we have to look at this as a public health crisis, which it is. It's in every state in the country and around the world. If you want to do business with the government and the government has that requirement, you have to get your shot. If I work in healthcare, I know that I have to go to a hospital and get credentialed. I have to have my blood drawn. I have to have my tetanus shot. I have to have a flu shot in order to work in the healthcare industry. That's something that's not surprising to me as a healthcare worker. No healthcare worker should be surprised by that. When it comes to businesses of 100 people or more, who are now setting their own requirements for their employees to keep their customers safe, if the businesses choose to do that, that's their absolute right. And that means me as a business owner, if I want to tell my employees that they have to get vaccinated, I have the right not to have them work here if they don't want to. But I don't believe this is a mandate. I think this is a very direct attempt by the federal government to get as many people vaccinated because of vaccine hesitancy. And I do support what the president is doing in order to get more people to be vaccinated.
Okay, well, thank you for all of you for a little clarification of what the word mandate might be meaning or not meaning in the context of this question. And as you have all indicated, it's complicated. All right. Another question that's political, but I think the question is probably clearer. And it is worded like this, again, sent in by somebody. Since November 2020, many people have raised false allegations of electoral fraud. Despite numerous audits and investigations, no evidence of fraud has been revealed. Will all candidates pledge to accept the results of the 2021 Nashua election? Unquote. Order, Ms. Gloria Timmons first, please.
That is a great question. I believe in democracy. And when our previous president won, I had to accept the outcome. I will absolutely accept the outcome in every single election because that's democracy and that's what you're supposed to do without question.
Okay, thank you for your answer. And next, Ms. Kristen Wilson, please.
Yeah, I fully trust our dedicated city poll workers and moderators, and they've never done anything that can be close to unprofessional. So yes, I absolutely think that the election results will be fine.
Great, thank you. And next would be Mr. Moran.
First off, just a flat yes, I will accept the results of the election. But we also have to, realize that those poll workers are our neighbors. They're our friends or our family who volunteer basically their time to run a fair election. And that's what democracy is all about. And we should be, praising them for the time and energy they put in to making sure that we do have fair and free elections, because this isn't, Russia. We get to have a choice in who we elect. And I'm thankful for everyone, Republican, Democrat, undecided, who runs those polls, because we know we can trust our neighbors.
Thank you. As somebody who's been a poll worker in Peterborough, I appreciate your thanks for those, for the work that gets done. And Ms. Kelly.
Yes, and I wanted to echo the poll workers' work. It's a very, very long day, and they are neighbors, and they're not doing it for money. They're doing it because they believe in democracy, and I believe in democracy.
Thank you all very much for that. A few more questions, and the next set is 2 separate questions, but then do come under one umbrella. So once again, the order in which I have you answer the first ones will repeat for the second question. So the question is this: do you, and again, it was sent in, so I'm reading it as it was sent in. Do you have any ideas about how the City of Nashua can increase energy efficiency and save money? Okay, the order for that is Ms. Wilson first, please.
I guess 2 ideas would be in that department. This is not something that I'm real educated in as of yet. Methane gas from the landfill and hydro dams. Solar power, obviously, but other than that, it's not a subject that I can really speak to without being educated and reading up on it.
Thank you. Hydro dams, we've got one in Peterborough. Next would be Ms. Timmons on that question. Gloria.
I think solar energy is the only thing I'm a little versed on. I'm not really versed on the other energies. I think we can save by using other alternative energies.
Okay. And Ms. Kelly.
Thank you. This might be my favorite question of the night. I have spoken very openly since, before being elected, but climate change is right here, right now. And if we don't do something, nothing else matters. And so I've been so honored to be on the Energy and Environment Committee for the last 4 years, working with a group of community members to do whatever we can to move this. That has been everything from adding electric car chargers to making sure solar goes into, we have one on the one of the fire stations, in the schools. We brought in an energy manager who oversees all of this and is really working hard to make sure we're LEED certified, that we are looking at community power. I wish I had more time on this question because there's so many things that we are doing, making sure that our public transportation is moving to sustainable energy whenever possible. There's so much to do, and there's so much education. I wanted to really look at citywide composting. We've had some discussions about that because so much of the waste that goes in our landfills is actually food waste, and so we can really reduce what goes in there, and that's all cyclical. But I won't bore everybody. I'd love to talk about it for hours, and if you want more information, I would happily tell you some of the things that we're currently working on.
Thank you. You still have 33 seconds, but the next question, maybe the next question will give you a chance to use those 25 seconds now. Okay, and so the last person on this question, Mel Moran, please.
What a great infrastructure question. And this is why I'm so excited about the bipartisan infrastructure deal, if it does pass, because we will be able to get funds to the city to reinvest in our city building and properties, making much needed energy efficient upgrades, from installation to just changing out light bulbs that are more energy efficient. We have a lot that we have to do in our city owned properties to make the city more energy efficient and thereby lower cost over the long term. Another aspect that I know many of my colleagues in the Nashua delegation, which the state representatives are working on, is net metering, where residential owners and potentially city facilities that utilize solar power will get a credit back from the power company for producing their own energy. A terrific way for the end user to see immediate cost reductions that are energy bills and get that discounted money back to the money that for the energy that they're producing themselves with their solar panels.
Excellent. Thank you all. And as I said, there's a follow-on question, which is worded this way. It says, and this may be related, but more broadly, another voter asked, what measures will you take regarding climate change? So I think I'll just invite you to, go wide open in whatever ideas you have, and don't worry too much about whether, you can actually do it as an alderman or not, because the last one really asked specifically about energy efficiency and saving money. And this one allows you to ask more broadly measures that you might take. So again, to remind you of the order, that is going to be Ms. Wilson first.
Well, obviously, the climate change is an issue, and we should be addressing it as a city as we move forward. So anything that we have at our disposal, we should use. We should be investing in more solar. I know that the city vehicles currently use compressed natural gas. Any of these things that we are currently doing, we should continue to do so, and on a bigger scale.
Great, thank you very much. And next would be Ms. Timmons.
Yes, climate change is a big issue, and I see it from the time I first came here till now. But recycling, natural energy, cleaner wind power, solar power, all of that should be examined and explored to change the climate. Because if we don't change the climate, we're going to get more storms, more natural disasters, more hurricanes, more everything. And we're destroying our planet. And we need to do that. We need to do something right now. It's almost too late. So I'm really going to look a lot into what we can do to turn this around.
Okay. And Ms. Kelly, you get your 30 seconds from the last one, in addition to the 2 minutes if you need them.
I appreciate that. I think I touched on quite a few things already. Increasing solar is really important. One of the things that I've brought up, but I know has some implications from a standpoint of cost was citywide composting. There's a lot of cities and there's a lot of studies that show that really does help with our carbon footprint as a city and as individuals. I want us to continue to push to meet the goal of being off of these unsustainable energy resources as quickly as humanly possible. And solar is one of those places that we can invest in, we can incentivize to continue doing. The states all around us, you go to Vermont and you see them everywhere. I want that here. I think that's really, really important, and we have to continue to push that. We need to build up the infrastructure for electric cars. That is the way of the future. It is also a way to attract people to come to our city. If they know that there's an electric car charger right in downtown and they can come plug in and go for a show at the Performing Arts Center and have dinner, that's a huge reason to come here. It also really shows what our values are as a city, right in just something as simple as coming down for dinner. So we have a lot of community gardening. We're doing those things. I was chicken woman. We had chickens. I think everybody thought that was kind of funny, but for me, it was important that you had a closer connection to your food chain, and instead of going and buying eggs that were put on a track and brought to me for refrigerated, I have eggs right in my backyard. It's not a big thing, but every little bit helps as we continue to look at climate change and how we can make an effect before it's too late.
Thank you very much. And finally, on this question, Mr. Mel Moran.
So climate change strategies need to be local, from anything from protecting our local wetlands. I serve on the House Recreation and Water Committee at the State House, and protection of our natural resources is key to ensuring that we have an impact positively on climate change. and making sure our water is protected, limiting PFAS chemicals from being exposed into water. Public service campaigns, relatively inexpensive to do. Let's change our lawns into community gardens. Let's grow some vegetables during the summer instead of some grass. Another option that we can do here in the city to what I would like to do if we can afford it, and maybe again with that bipartisan infrastructure bill we can, is offer direct grants to homeowners and to upgrade their furnaces that may be 10, 15 years old and bring them to be up to date to more energy efficient furnaces. Same thing with water heaters, and even changing out windows to be more energy efficient. We have to support our community to make these changes, and sometimes the individual homeowner can't make these choices on their own because let's say they're disabled and they own their home and they're just paying property taxes. They have a very fixed income and they have a furnace from the 1980s. How can we get these changes done in the home that affects the community at large?
Great, thank you very much. 32 seconds left. The next question is a little bit related as well, I suppose, but it's a longer term question I know in New Hampshire. And the question is, do you support bringing rail service from Boston to Nashua? And if so, what will you do to further that goal? So rail service. Ms. Kelly, please.
Thank you. One of the reasons I ran for office was commuter rail. I went to school at BU, and my husband got a job up here with one of the biggest with BAE Systems, and I said I can do that commute, no problem. It's a long commute, and it doesn't have to be. It is 2 hours door to door in the middle of rush hour, door to door. So 4 hours of your day are in a car. And in that time that I was, commuting, I really got to know the people who went on the bus with me, and we talked a lot about commuter rail. And I can tell you that multiple times people said to me, "Oh, they've been talking about commuter rail for 20 years. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. You should just give up. It's not going to happen." And I don't buy that. I think that there are a lot of people here who would very much like to see this happen, not only from an economic standpoint, but just how great would it be to be able to hop on the train with your family or your friends, go to a Red Sox game, not have to sit in traffic. The traffic into Boston is not getting better. So we need this. We need this fervently and quickly.
Thank you very much. I've just been told that we've run over on time on the questions, but let's finish this question and then we'll go to the closing statements. So next is Mr. Moran, please.
Great question. So the Capital Corridor project is actually, I think just maybe today, we're making great progress in actually bringing the commuter rail to Nashua, and hopefully it will become a thing. That's something we need here in the city. As you know, as many people know, a lot of our residents commute into Massachusetts. Just like Shoshana, I commuted from Nashua to Boston University for when I was going to school. Now I would drive 2 hours, or I would have to drive to Lowell to get on a train, get into North Station, and hop on the Green Line. And that eats up time. There's many people in the city that have the same and similar experience to Shoshana and I, whether it's going into Boston or whether it's going into another stop on the commuter rail. This will not only just allow commuting to be easier for city residents that live here and work in our neighboring friends in the South, but also it'll bring people to us to stimulate our local economy. A lot of times you will see fear tactics about urbanization, and that's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. We need to be able to thrive in our community, and we need to grow. And in order to do that, commuter rail is going to be a great option for our city when it comes to fruition.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Wilson, next. The question goes to you next.
I do support a commuter rail as long as it means limited cost to the taxpayers, and that we can rely on the state and federal subsidies and money for the funding for the commuter rail. I know that we already have purchased a park and ride on Crown Street, and we did use federal funding for that. And in addition to being convenient for people to commute, it will obviously have a positive impact on the environment with less traffic. And I do support it if it means limited funding from local taxpayers.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Timmons on commuter rail service from Boston to
Yes,
Nashua.
actually, I support it 100%. One is that we need it. It'll attract younger people to stay, especially into this area. Right now, everything is around New Hampshire. It doesn't make sense. They have to travel around. This way, they can come through New Hampshire, through Nashua, to Manchester, to the airport. We'll have more businesses. Our restaurants will strive better with more people coming in. The commuter rail to the airport is essential. I think that we do need commuter rail because that's the only way we can move forward and progress. That's one of the ways, but that's an important way to move forward and progress.
Great. Thank you all for amazingly thorough, interesting, and articulate answers to a series of questions. Okay, the closing statements, 1 minute, please, for your closing statements. And it begins with you, Gloria, Ms. Timmons.
Okay. Thank you. I'm running for Board of Alderman at large because I believe Nashua is a great city to live, work, and raise a family. We have great public schools, an extraordinary active downtown, a wonderful place to raise our children. I want to use my skills of working with others, mentorship, negotiation, budgeting, along with my passion for service to continue moving this city forward. It's a welcoming city. We need to vote for me on November the 2nd so we can continue what we're doing now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly?
Thank you, and thank you for moderating this evening. You did a lovely job. I am really grateful for the opportunity to talk with community, and I want to continue that work. I promised I'd listen, and I know that I've done everything in my power to do so over the past 4 years. I will continue to prioritize supporting our public school system, bringing in interesting events and ideas for our small businesses, making sure that they have the support to keep going because they're the backbone of this community. And of course, I'm very passionate about making sure that at the local level, we are fighting the climate crisis anywhere we can. So I ask for you to return me to the Board of Aldermen on November 2nd so we can continue this great work together.
Thank you. Ms. Kristen Wilson, please.
Yes, thank you for including me on the forum this evening. The reason I'm running for Alderman at large is because I want to make Nashua the best Nashua that it can be. And that means making smarter, more reasonable choices and investing in our community and what we already have. And we can accomplish that by compromising, putting politics aside, and getting back to the basics that a successful community should be, and that's safe, vibrant, and a well-educated community. I can bring an independent, a civil, and a reasonable voice to the Board of Aldermen. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Moran, please.
Thank you so much for your time today, and thank you to all the Nashua voters who took their time to listen to all of us speak. At the end of the day, you're all what matter, the people who show up and make a choice about their community. Decisions are made by those who show up, and I really hope that I can earn your vote. I love this city. I chose to raise my family in this city. I bought my first home in this city, and I intend to stay here in the city. I started my first business in this city. Nashua has a lot to offer. I am in a career that social services, social work, which is a public servant career. I've been a civil servant in a previous life, previous work life, and I want to bring that passion and dedication that I have to helping people to the Board of Aldermen. I'm a therapist. I definitely meet in the middle. I don't care about whose politics who walk through my door. I'm here to help them, and I'm going to be here to help every single person in this community, again, to make our community whole after such devastating pandemic that's brought a lot of hardship to our city. I want to do my best to help and use my skills to do that.
As your moderator, I want to thank you all, the candidates, so very much. The City of Nashua is very lucky to have committed, intelligent, concerned, passionate people like you running for office. And I really thank you for stepping up to do that as people who care about your city and care about being public servants. And as you said, to the participants who are going to be casting thoughtful votes, wonderful that you're here tonight. We're going to look forward to the next candidate forum on October 5th with the candidates for Alderman for all 9 wards. And Carol, can you take it away?
Yeah, well, thank you, Kate, for moderating, and thank you again to all the candidates for coming. So for the upcoming 2 forums, October 5th is the Ward Alderman, and October 21st is the Board of Ed. If you go to this website, tinyurl.com/NPL forum, that's NPL like Nashua Public Library forum, you'll be able to register and submit your questions. So we hope to see you next Tuesday at our next forum. Thank you again.
Thank you.